Howdys and salutations, y'all. Sorry, one more bump real quick. Sorry. Boom. All that thumping. Sorry. Just readjusting the microphone there. How are y'all doing on this fine Monday evening? Hopefully you're doing good. Let's see. I know I've been having a good time. So, we've been up to some fun stuff so far this month, and by fun stuff, I mean I actually don't remember. I think mainly Baldur's Gate and then crashing. But last month was a grand old time with Miquella, wasn't it? Now, y'all may be surprised at this point that we're even coming back to Miquella at all. Well, this month anyway. Obviously, we're going to come back to it eventually. So help me, I will beat this before the end of the year. I've never felt like I was fighting an art piece so much as with this one. But it's been fun, and it's been worth it. Because I like the direction we're going with it. But regardless of that, we are coming back to Miquella. I know the original plans had been Sword Timber, but, well, a couple of things. A, because of all the hecticness at the start of the month, we'd be really starting on the back leg here. And I know that you don't have to do all of them, but, like, you know, it's still fun to try to do as many as you can, and with, like, a third of the month tanked as a result already, I'm sort of like, eh. The bigger reason, though, is honestly, honest to goodness, the prompts this year are not vibing with me for streaming. Now, I do still really like the ideas, but honestly, they feel way more character design heavy than previous years. And I know character design might be a weird way to frame a sword, but that's the thing about these prompts, is to me they kind of feel more like character prompts than sword prompts. And I'm sure that, you know, you can be clever about it and make a sword, but it's not like last year where I just had some, like, fairly loose, open-ended, abstract-y thing to run with and make really funky swords. It's kind of, like, locked into... Because they're like, D&D classes and things like that. Like, let me pull up the list, not on stream. Well, actually, we may still... You know, I may not have the prompts in chat anymore, but I do still have the Sword Timber pop up, if that works. Did I ever get... Okay, I guess I never got it working. Well, that works out well, then. But, like, I don't know. Like, some of the prompts have been things like, well, Witch and Wizard are the first two, but I know there's, like, Barbarian and Knight and Spymaster and such. So you get some non-traditional stuff in there, but there's still very character vibes. And then I, of course, had to go overcomplicate it, because there's multiple lists for Sword Timber. It's not like Faith Schaefer's is the only one. There's another popular one by Tim Kaminsky, I believe. And, so his were more open-ended. They were things like Cosmic and Hologram and stuff like that. Very spacey, very interesting prompts. But, they just... The problem with Sword Timber is it's something that I kind of don't like doing on stream, which is new character designing. You're coming up with new designs for these swords, new ideas, and for whatever reason for me, trying to do the ideation part of stuff on stream just super doesn't work. Because ideation is, especially early on, is basically brainstorming, yeah? And brainstorming doesn't always get you what you're looking for. Like, it can get you closer, but like usually I tend to do it better in like little snippets. Like you do a few minutes here, and then you let those thoughts sort of sit for a while, go do something else, let it, like, percolate, or whatever you do with coffee on the back of your mind. And then, like, you come back later and maybe some stuff clicks, and maybe you're there, maybe you're like, ah, I like this idea. Or maybe you're not quite there, and so you keep going. And streaming's continuous format just makes it hard with the current way we do things. And I'm sure there's ways to make it happen, and we can do streams of it, we have before, but they're usually my least favorite streams. Sword Timber being last year being an exception because of how abstract they were, but the secret of last year is that I prepped most of those in advance. Like, I tried to come into every stream with at least an idea, and even then we had some where we got in there and we're like, oh, this idea doesn't work, and then those streams were usually not great, and we had to come back to that sword later. So, like, I prefer to come into a stream with an idea of what I want to do. I don't have to have it fully designed out yet or anything like that, of course, but, like, I want a better sense, and I just, with the chaos of the last couple weeks, I'm just not where we can do that. So I've been doing that in my free time, in my sketchbook with pencil and paper, which is where I kind of enjoy doing that sort of stuff more anyway. I don't know why. I'd love to get to where I can do that more on digital too, but right now, like, that sort of just lots of quick loose sketches is much harder for me virtually than it is for hardcover. So maybe we'll post some of those later, because I am working on some nonsensical weird designs for that, as is tradition for Sword Timber, at least for the stuff we do. But in the meantime, I thought, you know what? There's, well, two things. I thought, you know what? A, we actually were like kind of on a roll with Miquella, and I want to keep that momentum going, or at least, you know, use it to kickstart our momentum again, get that flywheel that's spinning after 2 weeks of wonky streams, and 3 weeks of wonky life. So I wanted to go back to something that's a little steady. I'm not actually sure what I'm going to do without this Miquella drawing if we finish it. Because, like, I think we've had this hovering over us for more than half of my entire streaming career at this point. Hey, Galactic! How you doing? Yeah, I'm doing good. We're just, we're shifting to some of this stuff instead of Sword Timber. Because it's fun, and I want to save my next, like, marathon art month for next month, which has Witchtober, and which I think will be a lot of fun. And it's the kind of thing I want to plan more in advance anyway. But how are you doing? How are things going on your streams? Or just in life in general? Let's see. I was just talking about maybe the dumbest art piece I've ever done. We'll see what happens. The prompt I ended up with Sword Timber by combining the two was Holographic Wizard, and I got a lot of wonky a lot of wonky design ideas from that. I'll definitely post that one later. Accidentally stabbed yourself an X-Acto knife. Oh no! Oh jeepers, was that like an EVA sword, or like you actually whittling one? But yeah, yeesh. Yeah, X-Acto knives have a little bite to them. Oh, I'm glad you're vibing, but I hope you're still like doing okay on that. Takes me back to my vinyl days. That is a fun, if tedious, medium. Although cosplay swords too, or actual swords. Oh, nice. I want to get into EVA foam working more. I've got the materials, but I haven't quite got the hang of it yet. Like, it definitely seems like it'd be so fun to work with, though. It's funny, the process of, like, doing EVA stuff is, it reminds me a lot of the process of assembling and painting Warhammer minifigures, which is kind of fitting in its own way. But they're both fun. Oh, you're gonna try to done before the week is over. Well, I'm gonna have to pop in and, like, if you post that in your Discord or something, I'm gonna have to check it out. Because, yeah, that'd be stinking awesome. Is that for the convention later? Or is it just, you know, to have? Because, I mean, that's a valid reason, too, honestly. Oh, okay, then I'll have to go poke my head over there again. Yeah, sorry, I've been, like, not super online the last couple of weeks because of just weirdness and real-life chaos. Should be settling back down again. I should be able to actually, like, pay more attention to the virtual world once more. Oh, yeah, getting the dowel in there is going to be tricky. Yeah, no, I'm gonna go check that out right after stream then. Yeah, I can't wait to see that. Okay. Yeah, I gotta balance things. It's not anything, like, wildly out of control. It's just left me a little too tired to have the patience to, like, be chipper and positive in all my online interactions, and I don't want to go around, like, dragging down the vibe on people. So I'm gonna, let it chill a little bit, focus on the important stuff, and then get back into my groove, which we're just about there, I think. We're getting close. Let's see. This was a blade layer. So this would be a shadow. Oh, this one. Ooh, I'm gonna have so much fun with the shadow colors on this, I just realized. Ooh, okay. Borderline monochrome, but not quite. But yeah, no, I can't wait to see what you come up with. In the meantime, you know, good luck with everything you're working on. Like, what was I using? Oh, I was using real G pen. There we go. More like a 12, maybe 15 even. 12. Okay, cool, cool, cool. But yeah. All right, let's see. Can add a little bit there. Have like a few matching streaks of that sort. Nah. Feels like the kind of thing that ought to exist over here in tandem. Ooh, that'll be nice. Yeah, the handle is gonna have, like, that's usually where most of the detail is, unless you've got, like, some wildly ornate thing. And even then. So yeah, that'll be so cool, though. UVA air dry clay. Ooh, I may have to look into that. That would be a handy resource to have, as opposed to trying to just etch pieces to fit back together just so. I wonder if that won't work, but I go through on the shadow layer and just use an eraser. That's one way to get a highlight. Matches well enough too. Hobby Lobby. Man, it's been a while since I've been to Hobby Lobby. There's been all my time at Joann's and Michael's. I totally neglected Hobby Lobby. The joys of a good craft store. I have to go check that out. Because I noticed, like, even Joann's and some of the others have started having, like, little tiny cosplay stands and sections and stuff with the EVA. But I hadn't seen the air dry clay. That seems really handy, actually. Future me is going to be so annoyed at the way that I'm doing this, but that's okay. Not that, like, erasing versus adding another piece to the highlight layer is better or worse, it's just the fact that I've been inconsistent, so I'm going to have to deal with both of them. Bigger highlight on the areas where it fits, smaller where it doesn't. Bold highlight there. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's... Corporate ethics are always stinking complicated. Although, the fact that businesses are getting so heavily involved in that sort of stuff in general, just like political lobbying, is obnoxious in its own right. But we'll see. Yeah, no, and Hobby Lobby got into some stinking weird stuff, like trying to buy ancient artifacts, and like, I don't know what was going on with them. But, you know. Yeah, no, I'm with you, though. I hope Joanne's and Michael's aren't also in that boat. That'd be a pain if all the craft stores go that way. This area wouldn't really have that much of a highlight at this point. Whoops. I got a little bit outside of my own lines with that. Funny, this stage always feels almost like I'm like doing a children's coloring book. And I'm like, wait. Whoops. Let's see it without the final sketch. Yeah. You just kind of got to make do with what you got, unfortunately. Well, maybe with time that stuff will get better, hopefully. Okay. Good. Wow, that really does illustrate the whole... lighter than this, darker than that. It feels... Yee. Optical illusions still mess with me even now. Yeah, it'd be nice if Walmart catches some of that stuff. And I mean, EVA foam is the kind of thing you can order for dirt cheap online too if you need it. But all the other stuff, not so much. Some part of my brain has, like, forgotten how shadows work. Come on, buddy. Light source is there. Blade should not be obscured or in his shadow too much. At least not to a noticeable degree. Nail some of the shadows just a little better in like the reflections. We'll see. We'll see. Some of that feels like a little too scratchy. I'm gonna have to go through and like actually get something reflective and mess with it. But that's okay. This is a start. Part of the issue might be A, the degree of tilt, and B, the fact that it's inconsistent which way it tilts. And I don't have a sinking clue which way it should tilt. I feel like it ought to be tilting out, though, right? But, well... Yeah, I'm gonna get a mirror and mess with that later. We shall see. But good luck with your cosplay planning. Hopefully that'll be a lot of fun. Good, still staying fairly true to this. I just need to make sure that I give these the proper depth and not some weirdness. Final sketch. I don't necessarily intend to have the final sketch actually on the final piece. I'm still sort of waiting to decide on that. We'll see how much we can convey without it, because I feel like it'll ultimately be better without it. Okay. I'm trying to think about where they are relative to the whole thing. I'm like, I've got so many more layers on this one than on usual projects that I'm like constantly nervously checking the layer just to make sure. Make sure that we're still on the right one. Because I got no guarantee that that's going to be the case. Start to get a little on the far edge even as we get down in here. Keep on working our way along this. I have so much edge cleanup to do on some of these. That's okay. We're getting way into the nitty-gritty here, and this doesn't necessarily need to be like hyper detail. Awfully cool if it was, though. I'd actually look at the flame patterns a little bit more, see if I can get like a better sense on some of them. Suppose if I make the shadow too heavy, it'll ultimately make the whole thing look a little bit dull and not as sharp, so we'll see. We'll see. Oops. I just thought I'd erase that whole. Right. Zip. That'll do. I'll do like a quick little touch up there to catch those edges. And let's grab a little more shadow here. Given how like funky flat this is, I feel like there ought to be a little bit of an arc. We'll leave that for now. I'm sure we'll come back to it later, but I don't think I can do much better until I look at either some like mirror and light references and also take it, like have the context of the rest of it. Okay, so that's the show tell. Now, few options we can look at next. We can look at the arm, which actually is not a bad choice. Interesting skin tone challenges we're going to have there with the high contrast, but I'm okay with that. I'm just going to have to commit to it and actually, like, genuinely be high contrast. We could do Miquella's needle, possibly as the icon. I could just make a new charm. Make, like, a Godfrey charm. Or a Godwin. Sorry, Godwin. Not Godric. Stinking the boss names in this game, so help me. They're the actual, like, they're not great. I love Elden Ring, but man, the boss names, not... I mean, they're cool, but they're a little hard to tell apart. They remain always very hard to tell apart. Okay, so for the dark sections, we're sticking to the top row here, keeping in mind that too dark and it will merge into the background. Oh, right. Create a new folder. I'm going to call, I guess, Tunic. And then I'm going to... I think I'm going to separate the lower and upper... Well, no, we may have a separate section for, like, the belt, but the tunic itself ought to be just, like, a layer. It shouldn't mess with any of the actual layer management. I mean, I guess if we did upper one as a separate tunic, we could put it above the arm, and but like, I think the layer is going to get more unwieldy than is worth it at that point. So instead, we're going to have our base, our tunic highlight, and our tunic shadow. Pop this one there, I suppose. We don't need to deal with different layer types yet. We'll make it a color layer once it's, you know, color. But until then, we'll leave it be. Ooh, this just like dark gray and kind of like minty teal is always a tempting color scheme to me. Not today. Not today. Another time. Another piece. Maybe with the highlights and shadows. Ooh, I am going to have a fun time with that. Because as much as it's black and white, we can add... Honestly, it really ought to be probably like a singular color to it, like a very monochrome. But we can have a lot of fun within that monochrome. Because it'll be... Like, the black and white is our most of our piece. And then, like, just the hints of highlight. We could do, like, warm lights and blue cold shadows if we really wanted. But I feel like there might be something better in having the cold light. And, like, what few shadows there would have any color at all would still be warm, perhaps. We'll see. I think we'll have a lot to experiment with once we get to that point. But until we get to that point, I'm instead going to be getting our tunic base color, which is going to have to be... We want room to make it darker, like much darker potentially. We want room to make it lighter. Let's start with this, and if we need to lighten it by one, we can. Whoop. Wow, is that the same as the like default CSP? How have I never noticed that? Is there like any sort of seam there at all? No, that is the same. Ah. Oh, hey May, how are you doing? Good to see ya. Okay, that's a little too far probably. Get our sketch in here. Hope things are better with you. Aww. Well, then I hope it recovers quickly. I know that feeling. We've had I've been fortunate enough to not catch anything, but like we've had plenty of sickness around the house lately. Oh, I can at least empathize. But I do hope you feel better soon. It's no fun being sick. This isn't the tunic, this is a hand. No shadows on this layer for you. Okay, let's see. Oh man, I have been playing too much Baldur's Gate lately. Oh, jeepers, I cannot put it down. It's almost embarrassing that I've passed the 70-hour point. And I made it to Act 2 at like 76 hours into the game. Too much. It's too much game. I thought Elden Ring was too much game, but this is somehow more too much. It has been a lot of fun, though. Clean this edge up just a little bit. There we go, I like that edge better. Well, a little freeform with some of this, huh? The lines, probably could have defined that a little more, but eh. More fun to define it at this stage anyway. Okay, we've got this. I can add some texture to it, although we'll decide just how much we actually want to add. Hopefully this stream will at least be a nice opportunity to rest while you're not feeling well. And do take it easy, lay low where you can. Or take those breaks where you can find them. Let's let those sort of run together. Might be clear enough, we'll see. I'm kind of enjoying going for like larger brush strokes with this one. Let's see. I wonder if anyone checks their art fight page like this far after the fight. Because I did throw some like last minute ones in there that I don't think got seen, which I can't be mad about that because I threw it in like within like 24 hours of the end of the event, so like not at all annoyed. But it's been cracking me up a little bit, like, hey, I wonder if they even noticed. Of course, one of them I don't even know if they logged on this year or not. I just wanted to get like a revenge for one they'd done last year, so I was like, I'm gonna do it. I stinking miss art fight so much already. It was so fun. The prep for it was a ton of fun. The actual event was a ton of fun. I got to meet and chat with a lot of new people. Just having a grand old time with that. Okay, I need to be careful when I get up into these stages. Because, yep, there's highlights in interesting places up here. Yeah, I think looser strokes with the tunic shading will be good. I may go back and reference my Melania fabric shadows a little bit at some point, but I definitely remember that one of the keys there was to not get way too caught up in the details on the fabric. It tended to work better with loose flowing lines, which this piece sort of inadvertently has a ton of. Let's see. Now, do we go with this for our tunic highlight? And like, that looks like it was a sizable brush too. We could, let's go up to like 50, and then we'll tune it back down a little bit. Tunic definitely behind Shotel. Tunic highlight layer. Yeah. Yep. Let's see. To reference my contrast guide. Okay, we'll keep it as like a nice, not too bold. It's just our edge light, basically. Ah, okay, then this really is just like a little bit of the tunic base that got a little too far out. Oh, interesting. Well, we'll clean that up later. Go one layer higher on the highlight for this little band here. I may drop our size back down to 50 a little bit. I feel like we're getting a little bit too... freeform is the wrong word, but like... because I love the freeform part of it, actually. But like, the edge light is going to be too much highlight, and I have to be delicate with the light, because it's really critical to the composition on this one. And then I may try to keep the edge light a little more to it. We'll see. Let's not press down quite that hard. the edge light to the edge. The edge. Whoa, don't wanna... Oh, I was thinking rulers. Ah! Always with the rulers. They're like... I don't know what it is about the way they've implemented rulers in CSP, but like for whatever reason they cause me the most problems. Triggering them when I don't want them, struggling to like remove them when I'm done with them. Like manipulating them is like tool-wise kind of a pain compared to some of the other stuff. And I'm sure it makes sense with the overall like workflow and design of the app and everything. Like I'm not saying, ooh, bad devs, because it's not that. But I just personally cannot seem to get the hang of it for the life of me. Okay, now let's see if we don't have our lines. Okay. We'll keep messing around with this then. How are we doing? 8:37. Wow, we're getting there. Depending on how much detail we end up putting into like the fabric, which may be a ton, may not be all that much. I honestly don't know what the end game on that one's gonna be. Oh, this high contrast one looks so cool though. It's gonna be hard to try to keep as much of that as possible. You know, highlights and shadows so often seem to end up right next to each other. Okay. I guess that one probably just continued. Yeah. There we go. I like that. I may have to make the whole tunic layer darker and then make the shadows like full on black. I may do that. Gotta commit all the way on this, you know. What that means though is let's do the shadows first. Just as a test, we'll see. Do a little bit of manual work on the points, that's fine. And I'm not 100% sold on having these shadows up here at all. But the highlights ought to be the ones doing the talking up there. And the hyper contrast of the shadow right next to the highlight kind of draws the eye in a weird place on that one that's not where I'm aiming for, so... But we'll see. Base layer. Still a thing of pretty darn darkness. Yeah. Yeah, I'm liking having the higher contrast here so far. Let's re-add our shadows and our highlights. Okay, good. That's getting the really harsh light that I was kind of going for. Oh yes, this will be fun. I'm torn because it's funny, I kind of gotten in the groove on like another art piece like before stream started. Not a digital one though, so it'd be a real pain to set it up to stream it. But like there's a part of my brain that's still like a little focused on that one instead of this one. I'm like, hold on, we'll go back to it. Just give me a minute. Give a little time. It's funny, having something about the fact that the Shotel is just pasted over the hand is like making my brain register it as looking photoshopped. Like someone just like drag and dropped it on there. I need to draw the hand just so that my brain like refigures out the perspective a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do the wow. Go ahead and go ahead. Go ahead and go ahead and go ahead and go ahead. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Anyway, let's get the rest of the tunic darkened. We'll come back and do the hair properly. Don't worry. We didn't spend all that time on braids for nothing. Now that we've got higher contrast here, it feels like this ought to be even like a slightly... Let's do it up another notch. Not this one. And I want to do more drawings where it's just like this, where like this is the end goal. And like this is where we land. Maybe like a little more polished, like the head and stuff could have a little more, but just the hyper contrast is really satisfying to draw, and given that scratchiness and style is something that I'm not usually very good at, like I like that we've got detail here. I'd like to continue that the same across, but I thought I was making accidental marks on the layer while I couldn't see it. But like just having something like this where it's got the feel and like the composition, everything just there, is like something I'd love to do more of, because it still took a ton of prep time. We had to do all the line work and everything and all of that, but like the actual coloring was so satisfying. Like thinking it through, where the highlight should be, where the shadows should be. Oh man, gonna have to do more like that. Starting to get not exactly like that, but like move in that direction a little bit, even with my like sketchbook drawings. I've got like some interesting ink brush pens that I've been using just to add a little more depth to the darks, make stuff pop a little more. We'll see how far we go on that. Gonna sip some water real quick. Where did I put it? Okay, let's keep going. I'm gonna keep to the scratchiness for the cloth, adding more detail where we actually need detail, and like not really adding too much otherwise. Like this is still clearly like more polished, and I almost wonder if I ought to do less. We'll see. We'll see. So many of these things like depend on how other pieces go in order for me to figure out like if it's what we want to do. So to some extent, you're just gonna have to bear with me a little bit more. I know that kind of fits the pattern and everything that we've been doing. Brush feels too small. Let's go back up to 40. I feel like the position is moving. Well, no, maybe not. Sorry, blinking light stuff. Hopefully the contrast between the darks isn't too bad to cause any actual issues. My bad. Sometimes I just get to comparing layers, and for me the easiest way to do that is just flick them back and forth. And I realize, like, oh wait, people might be watching. I shouldn't just do that willy-nilly. That's a little interesting texture. Oh wait, hold on, one more. Okay, so it's mostly below this line, and sort of the triangle that it forms going... Arced triangle, mind. Like here. Here, and then there. I have to trim some of the... Oh no, I'm on the shadow layer still. No! Highlights. That's okay. Oh, we've already got a good scratchy design. We don't need to go more all in on the scratchy. Like, I still have the other design. It's not like I'm getting rid of it. You can always do a polished up version of it. Get this going in here. Triangle it up. Erase anything that doesn't need to be in there. Then let's see. Ah, okay, we can like connect up a little bit here. It's so funny, like I don't even necessarily see, because it's not like there's one objective like way to shade this, especially with our somewhat vague light source location. So, like, it's fun trying to, like, follow the logic that I used in the previous one. And, like, figure out where we left off. Oh, right. Hiding... Oh, I'm hiding the wrong layer, that's why. There we go. That'll be easier than jumping back and forth so much. We can just use our reference directly. Grows a little bit as it comes down with that arc. And we've still got ourselves a little edge light all the way down. This part's interesting though, because I guess I just really went all in on... Like, I feel like this was somewhat accidental, but we ended up implying like a lot more creases by just having like these little like loose starts to them. And I love that. Color in between the lions. Actually, that was reading between the lions, wasn't it? That was a cute show back in the day. I feel like the secret of this one is doing a big brush with like a lighter hand. But I'm not sure. We'll see. Because the real secret of it, of course, was having a larger section and then erasing chunks out of it. But I'm not sure that that's exactly how I want to do it. Sort of what I'm building towards at this point with all the straight lines and stuff, but we'll see. I had to do like a webcomic of the week recommendation or something. Like, I don't know why that just hit me, just a spontaneous thought, because I read and watch, like, so many webcomics. And there's a lot of great artists out there. Now, granted, I wouldn't recommend every webcomic I read. There's, like, a lot of them that, at this point, I just sort of... What's the word for it? I, like, almost spite read it. Like, I don't particularly like where the story has gone, and I'm not that interested in it anymore. Maybe a character has passed what, for me, is like a moral event horizon, but in the story, they don't treat it that way. And so I'm just like, I'm done with this character. I'm not willing to forgive them. But, like, the story's like, you should forgive them, though. That's oftentimes what it is. Or like the characterization of someone changes over time and I'm just not as... Or the characterization of me in real life changes over time. And so characters I used to, like, sort of vibe with, I'm like, oh, actually, maybe not so much. Maybe not the healthiest mindset on that fellow. But a lot of it is just that, like, the story was never going in a direction that really worked for me, but I read far enough into it that I got hooked, and now I want to see where it ends, even if I'm, like, not rooting for the heroes. Those ones are funny. But, like, beyond those, there's so many webcomics, though, that I do genuinely love, and which are really, really good. And, like, I ought to just, like, start talking about them more. I know we did, way early on, we did a RPG style study. Which, I'm not, I mean, beyond just being a wonderful blast, I just realized I was doing all the Tunic highlights. Like, not quite the amount that I thought I was. I thought I was on, or maybe I was on this color. Here we go. Oh good, thank heavens. This was selected, and so I was worried we were on that, but it looks like we're not. Nice, 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 nice. Okay, we can bring this back a little bit. Yeah, this is definitely, like, bigger brush that I just kind of went loose, like, hog wild with. It's so funny. Oftentimes when you're, like, studying art or something, oftentimes when you're studying art and, like, looking at experts, it feels a little bit like you're an archaeologist digging through, like, the ancient ruins of Rome or Pompeii, or, like, I don't know, the early caliphates, or, like, Egypt, or, like, the Inca, like, just ancient ruins and stuff, where they had done such grandiose things, and you're just trying to piecemeal together and, like, recognize little bits and odds and ends and be like, wow, that's really cool, I wouldn't have thought of that. Or, like, interesting to see how different cultures approach it. But, like, I find myself in exactly the same weird mindset with my own stinking art from 2 weeks ago, where I'm just like, wow, cool, that's neat, I wouldn't have thought of that. Wait, apparently I did? Current me, like, is intimidated by past me's art, which is so silly. Such a silly way to... Because, I mean, yes, you know, if you want to compare to something to compete against, you're competing against your past self, and apparently I find my competitors intimidating, even if it me, but, like, still scary. So, like, I don't know. It's utterly silly, but it is true that I get that way. A little more than just an edge highlight on this one, methinks. I realize that ought to be shifting into shadows a little bit, but I also can 100% see, like, the light pouring in a little too. We'll get into the hair's shadow in a bit. This one actually ought to be lighter. Okay. Let's hide the contrast guide, the final sketch. Where are we at? Interesting. I mean, fairly true to the contrast guide, as I would expect. Not quite as rough around the edges, and I kind of like the roughness more for the fabric, to be honest. But we'll see. I'm always fine for touching up later. I want to at least get the pieces down on here first for context, and then we can go back and, like, patch it up as we move on. Of course, with the contrast guide, we have much less of the horizontal of the belt, in fact. Interesting. I almost almost implies that I ought to really like chill on the contrast with that, because it might detract from this burst. But before I do that, I would actually rather take a quick pause, start a new folder, load the tunic. That's just arm. Actually, let's clarify. Right. Arm with Chotel. No reason to get confused over his right or my right. Let's see. Arm S. Shadows. Here we go. Arm S base. S for Chotel, of course. And we'll have Arm C for the charm later, perhaps, assuming I remember. Highlights. So let's get that base color in there first. Remembering, of course, that the arm has some of the highest contrast, which I think I'm going to want to manifest with... We don't really want a middle color, so do I make it bright with a harsh shadow, or harsh with a bright shadow? I'm going to do... Our base tone will be bright. That way the shadow can be all dark, super ominous, doesn't need much gradient, just dark. Whereas the highlight will let us do a little bit more like detailing, because I do want some detail on this arm. It's part of our key motion here. That said, this is too light. When I say light, I mean like this. Actually, no, because the arm is like one of our first well, no, the tunic's sinking high contrast too. I'm just getting my brain all turned around. Yeah, okay, arm base color this. Fine. Very light. I may tone it down one. Arm base color that. No, because the arm highlight can be pretty dang bold. We'll see, we'll see. I want the contrast guide to be low, sorry. And then we'll get the arm highlights in here. Like, I do actually like the shape on this. It's funny, when I just go freeform and like, if you warm up and then go freeform and let like your instincts and reflexes take control, it can actually result in stuff that is also technically better. Not always, but like in cases like this. Like it has worked out. Just because, you know, a lot of the stuff your brain has sort of semi-inherently in it, and like we just don't pay attention to it and don't really know how to apply it when we're trying to draw things. But like, it don't mean your gut instincts are bad, it just means that they're bad for like beginning practice and exercises. Often. Not always, but often. Alright, this is behind the Chotel, so I can just sort of go for it on that edge. No harm, no foul. And we can get our bold edge highlight too. Oh, this is getting really confusing with the two layers on top of each other. I'll lay this out, and then I'll sort of clean up edges. Yeah, I figured there'd be a few like weird gaps in here that I just couldn't see because... Well, primarily because the areas where the arm, or where the contrast guide was, like sometimes area where it was overlapping with that just looked like a different shade. So like it was a little hard to tell them apart. Okay, but what this means, we've got the highlight, we've got our main. And really, I should have left some of that as the main, too. Well, we can erase away on the highlight layer, sort of like we erased away on the shadow on the other one. Because the shadows here are going to be, again, not the darkest shadows, but dark. Shadow should be above base layer. Yep. Not tunic. Oh, right. Arm should be above Shotel. Shotel should be above tunic. Okay. Yep. Right. This was one of those ones where I was just like, ah, well. Contrast guide. Hotel highlights gonna come through here. Or even the base. Oh, hello, Dex! Thank you for dropping in. How are you doing? We're doing good. We're doing good. How have you been? Hope things are going good with you. Thank you, of course, for the raid. Like, we're having a pretty low-key chill stream over here right now, but I do appreciate it a whole lot. Oh, nice. I need to play that sometime. We're going for an interesting high contrast thing. Elden Ring character named Miquella. I'm trying to get the impact of the piece. So we did like a really high contrast thing here, and then I'm trying to, as we start to add like values and eventually colors, like stay true to that sort of sharp edges. So we'll see how it goes. It's looking very dramatic, but it's not looking polished yet, so we'll see. But seriously, thank y'all for dropping in. Like, it's like, sorry, it caught me so off guard. I was just like, oh, Dex is here, and I was like, oh wait, it's a raid. So, like, seriously. But I streamed on this nice little Monday evening out here. And thanks, I'm glad you're liking it. I need to post more updates to the Discord and stuff. I know we've got like the stream notifications in there, and like we do post stream art in there occasionally, but when we're working on long pieces like this, there's not a lot to post into stream art, so like it goes quiet. I'll work on that. But yeah, oh man. Well, I'm glad you had a good Toontown stream. Let's see, I'm gonna go and see if I can't. Got the arm with the Shotel, we've got the highlights. Well, actually, let's get the base first. It needs to be coming through here. Covering the Shotel there. Whoops, let's have our lines here as a reference. Yeah, it's... Honestly, for me, it's just like a timing thing. Whoops, let's not move that entire layer if we can help it. Like, I stream really, like, fairly late at night from my own perspective, so I try not to do too many, like, updates and stuff after the stream. And then, like, I have work the next morning and I forget. So, I need to just, like, set reminders and, like, or, like, set one time a week where I'm like, here's all of this week's art or something. But yeah. Yeah, no, sharing art is such a complicated thing, because, like, on the one hand, I'm like, ooh, I made a thing, I'm so excited, I want people to see it, and then I'm like, oh, but it's not, like, that good. Especially early on, because I started this out, like, I did not start streaming as, like, pro artist. I mean, I'm still not pro artist, but I definitely did not start streaming as, like, hyper good at this. Or, like, even decent. I started streaming when I was bad, with the premise that I was streaming to learn how to do it. Which means that all the earlier stuff that I was throwing out in the world was really terrible. And it's come a long way. Like, this isn't one of those, like, I'm bashing on my own art. I love looking at that stuff to, like, remind myself of how far I've gotten since then. But, like, ooh, it's some of that stuff I'm like, I can't believe I actually shared that. But I'm glad I did, because people commented on it. And some of them were very supportive. Some of them were very honest, but that was appreciated too. But a lot of them gave me good advice on where to keep going. So yeah, I think sharing's always worth it. It's just tricky, especially with all of like the web scrapey stuff now, where you're like, I don't want someone else to take my art and like, I don't know, put it in their advertisement or some nonsense. But we're still small enough that that's not too much of a risk. Thankfully. So far. Let's see. Oh, that actually ought to be Shotel. Oh, interesting. There are the shadows too. Let the Shotel's grip actually show through there. There are the highlights from the hand. Nice. But you got a Discord? Maybe I ought to pop in there at some point. Man, I'm so bad about, like, social... It's funny, I'm a stinking Twitch streamer. Obviously, I'm on, like, social media, and, like, I get out there and I'm posting and sharing things, but I am, like, so slow at it. It is, like, the streaming skill I'm the worst at. But we'll get there. Oh, did I get the wrong darkness for that? Interesting. Should do that on the shadow layer, actually. Good, highlights are in the right place. Base seems to be... Oh, right, hold on, I need to do a little more. We have the view of the Shotel there. Really let it be its own thing. Cool. But I hope y'all have a good... Let's see. Oh, dang, you've been busy as a Discord mod. Running Twitch ones and fandom ones and, like, artist ones. Oh, man, I can barely moderate my one server with, like, 12 people in it. Kudos for having the, like, energy to do it. But, like, I don't know. I've got a couple, but, like, most of the ones I run are for, like, my own, like, personal D&D groups and stuff. So it's, like, just a small handful of us there, and it's still active when we're doing Dungeons and Dragons. But, like, having to actually, like, run a public one is a whole different challenge. Oh, I know. It's one of those... It's one of those sad little things where you're, like, almost celebrating it, like, not being noticed, because you're like, yes, a little bit of peace, and you're like, wait, wait, but it's worth it. Sometimes you just need that break. I almost got that way with D&D itself for a while, actually. Like, I was playing too many different stories at once, and, like, darn near burned myself out. Lots to be careful with that. But if you don't bite off more than you can chew sometimes, you'll never know how much you can take on. So, yeah, gotta push them limits every once in a while. Hold on, let me get the line art in here. Use that as our actual guideline for this. Cool. Alright, I need to, on the highlight, I need to actually do like a little bit of erasing there. Oh, nice! Oh, that's actually awesome. That's like actual professional art stuff you got going there. That's super cool. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. I hide the arm entirely. Is that... Okay, so some of that's just stuff that like I need to clear out in general on... Yes. The main silhouette layer? Yeah, okay. I'm just gonna do, like, run along the knuckles, because I don't actually need that layer to be there. Dang! Dropping a zine. Or I guess a zine, if you want to say it. Some people say it that way. I don't think it's not the most popular way to do it, but it's definitely how I used to early on. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we're getting that contrast there. Got the arm in front of the Shotel, so it like makes sense depth-wise. I'm gonna check the line work again, see how it's holding up in its own right. Pretty good. Pretty good. We're obviously losing detail there, we'll have to work on that. Yeah, and why don't I get back to them tunic layers now that we've got a little more of the other stuff going on around it. Tunic shadow. Actually, the base layer, first off, I think on the base layer, I have to darken this one a notch. It's here, we want it to go down one. There we go. Man, yeah, when you can get a bunch of artists together, that is so much fun. I'd love to do that with some of my friends and, like, get other folks involved sometime, just to go and, like, create and, like, share and publish a thing. Actually, had a very funky like programming class where we did that one time. It was a sort of art programming course. And so part of it was he ended up doing like blackout poetry of the code. So all of our different code segments had like attempting to make poems out of the code, which was, for the record, massively complicated. It's not a thing I would have chosen to do of my own free will, but since we did it as a class, it ended up being neat. I think our professor was the most enthusiastic out of anyone at the time. At that point, I was like senior year, and while I wasn't checked out, I was not super keen on taking on more projects. But like, that was cool. That was a cool thing. Even if a lot of the poetry ended up super awkward because, like, you know, you're trying to write it out of code snippets, which at the best of times have like a single full word for a variable name. So you had to, like, as you were coding, get clever about how you named your variables so that you'd have the resources to write a story with it. It was almost like it was an interesting puzzle in its own right, really. Oh yeah, I need that so that I can do the color fill for the shadows. That's right. That's what we're doing. Let's nab that in there. Yeah, no, it was interesting. It was definitely an interesting... That was a time when I was a lot... Like, it's not to say that I wasn't artsy, but I was not... I was worse at, like, flexible freeform stuff. I have always... I definitely started as, like, a STEM kid. Like, science, technology, engineering, math. I love all that stuff, even though I, you know, studied history in college, but we'll ignore that. But I like technical stuff that was either right or wrong and very precise, and that lasted into my art for a long time, and it still does, frankly. Like, the way I draw with pencil especially is very, like, precise in that way. Like, I'm very concerned with, like, the technical pieces, which has its benefits, but I've been trying to get better at doing, like, looser, more freeform stuff. Because there's a lot that's fun and, like, far more relaxing when you can actually just, like, work with the tools and with what you can do rather than fighting it a little bit. Like, it's always worth it to press on and try to do better, but it's also, like, you don't have to fight it every step of the way. That's why early on I really got into calligraphy, because that is a super precise art form, until you get into illuminations and decorations and such, and, like, really creative use of it. But, like, the basics are super technical. It's still one of my favorite things to do. I love calligraphy. I want to figure out how to do that on stream someday. I want to figure out how to do that as, like, an Etsy someday. I'd love to do, like, calligraphy commissions where people just send me random nonsense to write. Okay, so that's on the arm. Now, where do we want to do shadows here? Obviously, like, heavy shadows are kind of what we'd be leaning towards at this point. Especially as we get towards the back. I really ought to weight these shadows up a lot more, even as they're faint. It's a lot of fun, and it's one of those things where you can be fairly amateur at it and still get results that are good. Like, you know, experts can tell the difference, of course, but, like, if you want to just, like, learn one script that's, like, not super complicated, and, like, just practice that one, it doesn't take too long to get to a point where it's like, oh, I could use this on, like, a thank you note or a card or something, and, like, people would think it's cool. If you ever want to get into it, my tip is, like, start with the marker pens. Because learning to manage, like, dipping the ink and stroke weight and all of that part is definitely wonderful, but it's kind of a separate skill, and you don't have to learn them both at the same time. You can, like, learn the scripts and the techniques of, like, actually doing it with those marker pens, and then you can have a go at, like, dip pens and figuring out the pressure and all of the, like, little nuances with those. I still use the marker pens a lot. When I just want to do something silly, like, I just break those out. They're great. That's why I have a small framed piece that's just the word Yaldav written in, like, gold calligraphy on fancy paper, because it's the dumbest word I can think of. It's got, like, 3 apostrophes in it. And to write that in fancy writing just cracked me up to no end for some reason. Still cracks me up a little bit. It's utterly nonsense. It's very silly, but it still makes me laugh. It's I think it looks lovely and utterly ridiculous if anyone ever actually reads it. But I mean, I studied medieval history, so like of course calligraphy was something that I'd have to get into at some point. Like it's a wonderful art form. I have a lot of fun with it. Okay. I'm gonna take just a second and like really go all in on these shadows and see if that gets us a different effect. Like I still want the rim light, I still want the high contrast rim light there. But like the back part of this tunic does not need to have as much detail as I'm giving it. We can let a lot of this fade into the shadows. There won't be all that much lost. And there'll be some gain because we'll maybe get focus on places that need it. Get like a little light there. With like a little rim lighting on the lower parts just to help define them a little bit. Even if we have to fudge the actual shadows a little bit. But we'll see. Yeah. Oh man. If I ever get like a rig to actually like stream real world stuff like my desktop, calligraphy is absolutely on the top of the list of stuff I'd love to like just do a calligraphy stream sometimes. It's such a silly, like, lighthearted one to do, I find, for all of its technical stuff. Okay, yeah, I'm liking this more. I'm liking this. We'll aim for, like, harsher contrast on a lot of this. Now, if we lose our sketch, how much of the detail is still maintained? Enough, and that's what matters. We've got enough of the detail in here still. A few areas that I'd like to clean up then, so they don't distract. Okay. This is interesting. I like this. Like I said, I've been trying to get more into like more free-form flow and stuff, and this art piece has been definitely a part of that whole experiment. I'll give even more contrast and pop to the Chotel too. Not quite where that shadow ought to go, and I'm gonna have to figure out how, once we're intermixing these two, to not get like too harsh of contrast. I may like lay off the super dark shadows. We'll sort of transition away from them a little bit. Pass on the torch to this area that's somewhat in the light. Still not a ton, mind. Okay, that line's done. No, just because the Chotel's there does not mean that that should actually have like an edge. Okay, interesting. I'm having fun with this nonsense. Nonsense is the wrong word for it. But like, I don't know, it's fun to try out a new art technique and actually get like good results sometimes. Like this has been very satisfying. Let's see. Whoops, that was the wrong button. That is my bad. Brief snap preview of some of the art fight stuff. My bad, my bad. That is on me. I use Stream Elements and I love it, but there's just a handful of things, like really few things but one or two things you can click that open a new window, and it never opens the new window in, you know, like the same screen I'm on, so it ends up causing a lot of scrolling. Give me just a second to make sure that didn't, like, open audio or something that's going to start playing in 2 minutes. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. Just gotta clear up some loose ends. But yeah, thank y'all for dropping by. I hope y'all have a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, whenever the heck it is for you. Time zones are funky. And not to be relied upon. I do that too much at work. Yeah, they get so complicated. And, like, my job, I have to set up meetings between people that are on, like, stinking different continents sometimes. And, like, figuring out the time zone communications and conversions and making sure you're in the right time of the year and that no one's in, like, one time zone that's, like, daylight savings, but the other country isn't. Like, like, I get why we have them, but, like, man... Yeah, don't let me keep you up too late. Sleep is absolutely critical. They say sleep is for the weak, which, as far as I'm concerned, means you should be getting it every single day of the week. But yeah, you have a good one. And I hope y'all have a good whatever time it may be. I guess late for you. So yeah, y'all have a good night. Let's see. Okay. Gonna get into more tunic fun up here. We'll have a rim light up there, don't y'all worry, but doesn't mean we can't have a pretty bold shadow, too. Nab that highlight, go for... Let's stick to consistent on what we've been using for the tunic so far. Then... we'll... get the rim light again. The hair and everything is going to, of course, cover some stuff, but we can still get this while we're at it at the moment. A little bit more around that edge. Okay. Oh, that's fun. Could even, like, go all the way and complete that line. We'll see if that's maybe, like, too much. Oh, we'll do the partial one. That'll work. And then I'll have to think through our light source and the hair and everything again once we get to that point. We're almost at. So much weightier. The alignment still seems to be pretty close. I'm sure I've moved one of the layers by accident at some point already. Ooh, okay, when we get more shadows under the hair, that'll be interesting. Okay, forgot about that part. Then that actually makes these shadows better. Nice. Okay, good, good, good. We'll stick to darks over here, leave it to the lights here for the really bold highlights on that. And then, of course, the face is where we're going to have to actually put in more detail than we did last time. That's a-okay, though. We'll get to that. We're making headway on this, although, again, this has actually helped a lot with my desire to have it be scratchier. But I'm probably going to have to scrungle up some of the highlights, too, just to make sure they've got a slightly softer fabric, like more fabric-y edge, not quite the harshness. Oh, man. Okay. This is going to be fun. And we'll add more detail in the hand. The hand is very much not done. We can't have this level of detail in the Chotel right there, and then, like, the hand is... It's It's a little silly. I'm also realizing the handle to Shotel feels kind of big and silly, but it's also just like that in the game. So, like, it's hard to, perspective-wise, mess with that. We could make the hand bigger, but I think we've futzed around with the hand quite enough so far, and we're going to call it on that. So what I'm going to do here, what I'm going to say is, let's take our water break. We're later than usual on it, which means that I really need to drink some water, use the restroom, all that jazz. Make sure you take a few moments to stand up, stretch your legs, mainly stretch your back and neck, honestly. Like, those get hunchy if you're not careful. And we'll be back in a few. We'll get a little further today. We're obviously not going to finish it, but we're going to keep on moving on this. And we're going to be doing Miquella the rest of the month. Now, I should... yeah, I should probably go ahead and call it on this. I think for a little while we may still need to pause the Sunday streams. I have just not been able to keep a reasonable enough sleep schedule to make them happen. Like, my Saturday nights have just been too inconsistent, and until I can get that sorted out, which depends on me getting my Friday nights sorted out, which I don't actually want to do because Friday nights are my time with friends, and so we'll figure it out. We will figure it out at some point. But long story short, we're probably going to have to put a pause on the Sunday streams. I may pull them off the schedule here in a little bit, which still gives us plenty of streams this week, or this month. We'll try to find time for others, we'll see. And again, if we may or may not finish Miquella this month, but we'll make good headway. And it's something that I'm actually excited to work on again, which is awesome, because this used to be my dread project. But no worries on that. From going from haunting us to being a comforting thing to fall back on, we will definitely keep going on Miquella. But only after this break, and mercifully no messages, no advertisements for y'all. Better not be, I'm not stinking affiliate yet, so if y'all are getting ads, that's news to me. In any case, I'll see y'all in just a couple minutes. Again, don't forget to stand up. Trust me, like, I realized I was getting headaches throughout college because my posture was so bad. It's worth it. Take a moment to stretch, and see y'all in a few. Howdys and Salutations! We are back once again. And, yeah. I don't know. We are in fact going to keep going on this Miquella illustration just a little bit longer. We'll see. Just the tiniest bit longer. Maybe 25 minutes or so, you know, to the normal end of stream. Okay, we can have a little fun with the shadows, specifically on the arm. I'm gonna pause the, while we're here, let's nab these shadows, grab an even darker shadow. Here we go. Perhaps a smaller brush. And let's actually chuck our final sketch on here, although not at max opacity. Super faintly. I want to see if we can't give these fingers like a little more definition. We'll see if we end up ultimately wanting to do this or not. Just thinking about the light source, I thought it might be worth trying to give these like a little bit more something going on. Worry though that if we go like too all in on it, then it's not going to actually make sense with the shadows. Let's also try to think about the actual, like, shadow shapes. Yeah, we're getting, like, a lot of contrast there. Not eye drawing, but it's, like, a little more than it should be. Of course, the other one was so plain that it was, like, drawing attention before just for the absence, so... Or we can find, like, a middle ground. Hope we've learned our lesson. Won't repeat that same mistake twice. There we go. That's, like, not so plain that it looks unbelievable, but it's still, you know, got a little something. It's good balance, is my point. I like that. I like that. Again, the knuckles a little bit gives that the depth that I was trying to achieve with the shadows without actually needing overly harsh shadows. Okay. Any interesting things to do with the arm? I'm feeling like for the highlights, gonna want like tiers of highlights, you know, like a little bit of a gradient going on with it. As much as I like it being also kind of washed out. Hyper harsh. I kind of like the idea of it having just a little bit, just the littlest bit of shadow still. Right on those edges, on the penumbra of the chateau, which I never am going to represent well. We'll see if this ends up just, like, giving it unwanted depth or some such. And it's not really noticeable at all. Okay, not a ton of point in doing it then. But also no reason to remove it at that point. We'll leave it alone. We'll leave that there for just the time being. Oh, what's the thumbnail for this one gonna be? So many things that, like, it's just like I've got a whole bunch of stuff that's like half done on it. So it's not the easiest to grab. Like a good... I mean, we could always go for the spike again. But like that in and of itself is not massively exciting. Go for the hand, but that I don't think would make the greatest thumbnail in the world. We can worry about thumbnails once we're to that point. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. We could do like just the abstract folds. I think there's some stuff of interest going on there, perhaps. Okay. Ooh, let's grab our contrast guide at its low, not too high of brightness. Moderate transparency, perhaps even. Same. Okay. Now, obviously, hair is going to be its own layer. Probably several layers, like a lot of layers. Front hair sections, back hair section. I mean, even Pit Crew has to do that. Hair goes around the head and like behind and in front of things. It's drapey. This, however, you might be able to just do. Still, there's not like a square charm that actually fits, but I really like the square charm look, so we may either have to invent one or like try to find one that's halfway decent. I think there's the prosthesis charm, which admittedly wouldn't make tons of sense here other than just something he cares about. But let's go ahead and on the tunic, light and shadows, would be the highlights in this case, we're going to want some bold highlights, really like much bolder than we've been doing up to this point. And I'm gonna stick pretty true to what we're doing with these scritchy scratchy ones. Arm itself will hold off on, of course. I do feel like a little more on the belt itself. Maybe like a twist so that even it's angled somewhat favorably to the composition. Put that away. And let's chill a little bit on some of that part. We don't want the harsh edges for the glow. Want of the glow in general. Perhaps even a fairly deep shadow behind it will be good. And we can always have, you know, more glow on this side for the tunic. Or for the belt. Although I don't know that we need a ton over there. Really? Go for like a much tamer. I feel like even the highlight on that part, like in the middle, should still be a shadow in its own right. Yeah. I assume that that part is like hair and not just bad silhouette. I mean, obviously part of it's the arm, but some of it's not. But I think that some of it is, in fact, hair. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're getting towards the end, and I can feel like my focus waning a little bit. I don't... As much as like pushing forward is not usually a bad idea in these cases, I'm trying to fix my sleep schedule because, you know, A, it's good for work, and B, I would like to do Sunday streams, even if I can't do them consistently. But I'd rather they be a bonus treat that happens sometimes than a usual fail that occasionally is met, you know? Like, it's not going to be that different from what we've been doing, but I don't want to, like, get people's hopes up in the wrong way. So this way I figure, well, let's just be honest about how they're actually working. And this way, even the shadows, like with the folds and stuff that they're on, are going to be pointing and directing the eye towards this focal point. Which is, again, in and of itself, not inherently significant until we figure out what charm it is. This looks so grim, but like in a good way. I don't know if that makes sense. Ah, we can get a little highlight going in some of the contrast folds too. Okay, yeah, let's do that. And then let's make sure it doesn't clash with the stuff we've been doing. No, not badly. And you know what? I'm going to commit to the shadow because we're going to put the hair layer on top of this. I'm going to actually just like shadow the heck out of all of that. And we'll let the hair sit over top when the time comes. Merge that, get a little more shadow even happening in here. Ah, that's on the highlight layer. Ah. Now, you may think like, oh, it's fine, like, you know, we'll just leave it on the wrong layer. The problem is the way that we do colors and lighting. The layer matters a lot. Which you could make the valid argument of, okay, maybe that's a bad way to do colors and lighting then, but the results are so good. Okay, and I'm going to go into the highlight layer and just run a big ol' eraser over this whole section. That's not the highlight itself because I don't want to erase that. And okay, we've just about saved it. And fix the last little bits. That's easy enough. Here, whoops. What on earth happened there? Well, anyway. Okay. And I assume a lot of that's on the highlight layer too. Yeah. To be fair, some of this might be a little overkill. We can always make that judgment call again next time. Yep. Okay. Once again, very much solvable. Glad we noticed it now and not later. Got like too many small spikes here that aren't strictly speaking necessary. We'll probably take a fresh look at some of that tomorrow. We've gone a little overkill on some of the shadow. Not the shadows themselves. This part's all great, but like the level of detail in these like narrow spikes is probably needs to be like consolidated with like a larger brush, and we just like something more like that, and I think it'll be better. For a second I thought I was on the highlight layer again and I almost panicked. I was just like, no, really? But we're good. Problem is I do need to make sure that the shadows aim at the places they should aim. Even if we're gonna do it this way, they need to align with the right places or else it won't be super believable. But we'll go from there. And I think that's a reasonable place to wrap it for tonight. We'll come back, we'll look at the arm, the charm, and the amazing hair, I hope. I really like how the hair looks in the contrast guide. I like the heavy darkness up here, and I'd like to maintain some of that. So I'm hoping that the results we're getting at this stage are actually good. If not, I've got ideas on how to improve it. Like, we'll not be just at a loss, like, it didn't work. Oh no! But no, it won't be like that. We'll be fine. And then we'll, you know, once we get from this, we get to, well, color for the most part. And then we're in the end game, mate. Once we're into the colors, I mean, there's still a lot to do, but y'all remember from Art Fight, that's moving along. So next time, we'll work on that. We may look at the Melania art a little bit, just as like a reference for the fabric in general and how we did it there. But in any case, for the continuation of this saga's too short a word for it, this stinking marathon of Miquella, pop back in next time. We'll be here again, same time tomorrow. And then we'll see after that. Definitely Monday, Tuesday next week. Sunday, probably not. But there's a chance. It could be a bonus thing, but probably not. To follow to find out. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, all the wrap-up stuff you want to follow. We've got the Pinterest with our refs. We've got the Discord if you want to pop in and say hi and see some of the art or share some of your art, which we talked about earlier in this stream and is definitely worth doing. We've also obviously got here. We've got Tumblr, which is our new main because the Twitter one is gone places that not good. And Facebook was never good. If I ever want to really properly do this full time, I'm going to need to go bite the bullet and actually like have a presence on all those platforms. But since this is a side hobby project bonus thing, technically, I'm not going to commit to all that yet. Because, you know, social media drains the life and joy out of most things it touches. At least those big, broad ones like that. But do drop by to say hi in Discord. It's a lot more community driven, and obviously feel free to like just lurk on Twitch. You never have to say a word. You're not obligated to participate. I'm not your teacher. You're not getting graded. You're not going to fail the course because you didn't raise your hand. But we will continue this particular drawing, and we will continue our general endeavor to just get better at art and learn how to draw together as a group. Hope y'all are getting some benefit out of it. I know I've certainly been. Just have to look at the 2 art fights to see that, pretty obviously. But there's still so far to go. So, as we continue this, I bid you all the best of luck whenever you may be that different time zones or watching a recording. And I hope y'all have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, night, whatever time it may be for you. Hope that I'll catch y'all on the flip side.